So today's questions are from Mum, whose daughter is 8 years old. Her daughter's name is Sophie, and Mum's name is Anne. So Anne says, my daughter is terrified of making mistakes. If she gets one spelling word wrong or loses a game, she cries and says she's stupid. We've tried telling her mistakes are okay, but it doesn't seem to help. Why does she react like this? So I had a similar question last week, so you might want to go and listen to that answer as well, because it would give you a little bit more in-depth information and a little bit more help. But basically, um, a lot of children see mistakes as that they're not good enough. They see it as they're going to disappoint their parents. They see they're going to disappoint their teachers. Sometimes it's also a little bit of a competitive thing. So you've got to find out, try and notice and find out what is behind this, because there's some thought behind this behavior. And, you know, school is the place where children learn a lot about how to be competitive, because it's very focused on marks, it's focused on sports and coming first in sport and doing well. And so often children will make up a meaning about that. So if your child, for instance, is not great at spelling and somebody else is great, and she saw somebody else getting praise for the fact that their spelling was so good, she might go, oh, well, but my spelling isn't good, so I must therefore be stupid because I can't spell as well as Danny can spell or as Johnny can spell. So, and teacher keeps saying about how clever they are and how good they are and how proud she is of them and well done. And I'm not doing so good, so I must be stupid. So every child creates this, adds meaning to things that happen. We all do it. You know, we as adults, we struggle with those things because we've added meaning as a child. And often it's not what it is. It's just human behavior. It's just what we do. So I think try and pay attention to, is it only with things like spelling? Is it you said she loses a game, so there's also that. So even losing the game might be that, oh, I'm stupid. Um, and it could be based on exactly what I said, where she's noticed other people always get the trophies and the awards when they win, which makes her think that she's stupid when she doesn't win. Or there could be a little bit of a competitive streak, but the competitive streak is kind of tied into it. It's because children want to please their parents, they want to please the teachers, they don't want to disappoint, and so often that's why they struggle with that. So pay attention to the behavior, see if there's a strand across a whole bunch of things, and then one day just ask her about it and say to her, why do you find it so hard when you lose? Or um, why do you think you don't like losing? Or, um, you know, why don't you like making mistakes? Because sometimes when we say it's okay to make a mistake, they don't hear you because we're just telling them what to do. And so we're not really resonating with what they're going through. And that's what's important, to get to relate with what they're experiencing in the moment. And as I've said, and I'll keep saying it, is that the easiest way to talk to your child when your child is relaxed, when they're doing something creative, when it's not in the moment. If it happens in the moment, you can soothe, but allow them to feel those frustrations, those feelings of frustration, allow them to just vent, allow them to just get out. And then once that moment is over, or even another moment when they're just relaxed, then bring it up. And it's especially helpful if they're busy doing something creative or fun using their hands, and then take that moment to talk to her. And so find out what it means to her to make a mistake. Um, she says she's stupid. What does that mean? Okay, because there's an underlying meaning to it. It's like, won't she get attention? Does she think she'll disappoint? Does she think she won't be loved anymore? So you want to ask her those questions about, to discover what the underlying meaning is. And then the best way to help her with that then is to relate. Give her a story of when you made a mistake or when you felt stupid because you made a mistake. And then you realize, but no, I'm not stupid. I'm actually really good at doing this, and I'm really good at doing that. And I have amazing friends, and I'm really good at making friends, and I'm really good at mini golf or whatever. So make up like a whole bunch of, not make up, but fill the conversation with moments where you felt stupid and then having that realization so that she can relate to you and she can see that she doesn't have to define not winning or not doing well, that with her self-worth or that with you being disappointed. And always remember to end off a conversation with a child and say, you know what, whether you can spell or not, whether you win a game or not, I'm always going to love you. Nothing is ever going to change that. And some people are better at other things than we are, and we better at some things, and they're bad at some things. So always end off with reassuring your child, because the most important thing for a child is to feel safe, loved, and accepted. That's it. Safe, loved, and accepted. So, right, and I hope that helps you. But as I say, go and look back at that other one that I answered as well a couple of weeks ago. So this is from Dad John, and his son Ethan is 11, and he says, my son gets really frustrated if things don't go the way he planned. If we suddenly change our plans for the day, he becomes angry and sometimes refuses to come with us. Is this just stubbornness or is something else going on? Okay. What is possibly going on is that a lot of children don't like change. They don't like unpredictability. And as I just said in the previous video, is that children always want to feel safe. Number one, they just want to feel safe. And so often, especially if you look at the different brain profiles and you look at different personalities and different challenges that children have, some people need predictability. They need to know what to expect. They need to know what's going to happen. They need to know where they're going. And there's little things that happen in a child's life that kind of throws them off. So, say for instance, some children might have wet their pants because the toilet wasn't, there wasn't a toilet close by, and so they couldn't get to the toilet, or they went somewhere and they couldn't find their parent, or they went to a shopping mall or a shop and they got lost. So there's lots of little things that happen to a child, and we think they're little things, but they kind of build up and they become memorable. They get stuck in the amygdala with all the memories and the emotions, and so therefore the body is trying to keep the child safe because it's now remembering what happened before. And so possibly your child had a smaller or bigger event that there was something or somewhere that he went to and it was unpredictable or things didn't go as planned. So how you can help Ethan is to give him predictability. So say for instance, you're saying, I understand you don't like change. Like I'm referring now to your specific question. You said if we suddenly change our plans, you can say, I know you don't like change, or I know you're disappointed that we're not doing what we thought or what we said we're going to do. And then explain in detail, give them steps of what you're going to do so that they can make a plan in their head, because children who are scared of change and scared of unpredictability, they plan in their head for days in advance. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to look for the toilet. My daughter used to do this. It was crazy. She had one incident when she was 6, a toilet incident. She couldn't get to the toilet in time. Every single place we went to after this, any restaurant, anywhere we went, the first place she had to go to was, where's the toilet? I just need to know where it is. So she would go to the toilet and then she could relax and then she could enjoy herself. So children, they need to know, they need to plan, and they do this days in advance. They're setting their minds at ease, and they're almost like forcing their body to relax, and it's going to be okay. Mom will be there, dad will be there, everything will be fine. And then when you change it suddenly, they're like, oh my word, my whole plan is gone now. How do I deal with this now? Because now I haven't had time to plan. So you need to then give them the plan. You can say to them, we're going here. You don't have to worry. Mom and dad will be with you. You know, just map out what it is that you're doing and reassure them that if something else happens that's unplanned or unpredictable, that they can just ask you. They can ask you for help. They don't have to, he doesn't have to feel embarrassed. He doesn't have to feel silly, because sometimes, we don't like our plans change. And it's important for you to validate that, because I think a lot of times as parents, we go, oh, this is ridiculous. Come on, man, we couldn't do that. get over yourself, man up, pull your socks up. I mean, we say like really weird things to our kids and we expect them to behave like adults or respond like adults. But even adults, there's loads of adults that don't like change and they need predictability. So make sure that you validate that and say, I'm sorry that we're not going to do that anymore. This is why. Give them the reason and then say, this is what we've arranged instead. And we will navigate, we'll figure it out together. So, first of all, you're validating, and second of all, you're giving him a plan so that he can um, calm his own nervous system down and not be apprehensive and scared of anything that's going to be unpredictable. Right. Okay, the next one comes from Jody and her daughter. His name is Isla and she is 6. My daughter wants me to stay with her all the time. She follows me from room to room and gets upset if I even go upstairs without her. Should I be encouraging more independence or does she just need reassurance? Comes back to safety again. Everything's about safety with kids, isn't it? Um, so children need to have a sense of secure attachment and emotional security. And so, independence grows naturally when children feel safe first. So as children grow, and if you want to understand more about the phases with regards to emotions and how children grow, do my free course. It's on the channel. I'll post the link down below again. But children, for instance, the first 2 years, they're all in survival, actually, right up until the 4th year. That part of their brain, everything is about survival. It's about feed me, keep me warm, comfort me, cool me down, everything. Survive, survive, survive. And then from 4 years old, they then become a little bit more independent and then they click into their emotional brain and they stay in their emotional brain from the age of 4 right until about 24, 25 when their logical, rational brain kicks in. So you usually see a shift in children when they're around 4. Their little personalities come out and they're independent and they want to do it and they want to figure it out for themselves, but they're also figuring out who they are because there's like this detachment that happens. So up until the age of 4, children still feel like they're part of you. They feel like they're part of the mother. And so at 4, they then detach and then they become their own little person. But sometimes it takes some children longer if they don't feel safe and secure and emotionally safe. And sometimes this can happen when they have had emotions and they've been dismissed or their emotions haven't been validated. It could be by anybody. And so emotional safety and emotional security means that a child and an adult needs to feel that they can safely express their emotions. They can safely show their emotions. So whether it's a tantrum, whether it's crying irrationally or rationally, it doesn't matter. And if they've had an adverse reaction to that, then they will not feel emotionally safe and secure. And often this happens with children. I'm not saying this is the case with you. I'm just giving an example. Often this happens with children where parents have used the cry it out method for sleep training. It's very damaging. Where they've used naughty steps, where they've used sending children to their room, where their tantrums as a 2-year-old were not tolerated. Excuse that noise in the background. It's my dog coming in the dog flap. Um, so any kind of where a child has had big emotions and they've been left to deal with their emotions on their own gives them a sense of, oh, it's not safe for me to express my emotions. It's not safe for me to have emotions because I get an adverse reaction or I get sent to my room or I have to deal with it on my own and I don't know how to deal with it on my own. So if this is the case and this may be one of those examples happened, and sometimes we make mistakes because we don't know, right? We don't know. We don't get a manual and we think we're doing the best or we're trying the best we can and we are doing the best that we can with what we have. So it's not too late to fix this. And so you've got to find a way now that every time your child feels emotional or shows emotions, to show her that it's safe for her to express that. And how you can do it is that you validate and you use words that will help her. So the first thing about becoming emotionally intelligent is to learn the words of the emotions, because you can't express those emotions if you don't know how to label it. It's like learning a language, right? You can't learn to speak English or whatever language you speak if you haven't learned the words first. So you need to learn the words. And I do have a poster. I've got a feeling list word actually on my Deborah McPhillamy website under freebies. Um, and then I think it's called freebies. I'll put the link down below. But then there's a poster that you can get that you can have print out and stick it up to help your child. And so you can, which has all the expressions as well of the emotions, so you can teach them. So basically, if your child is, for instance, following you around and she looks a little bit emotional, try and determine what that emotion is. And you can say to her, um, do you feel scared that you want to be close to me? And she might go yes, or she might go no. Or you can say, do you feel lonely that you don't like it when mom goes upstairs, or when mummy goes upstairs? Does it make you feel lonely? Is that what? So you want to help her to identify those emotions. And if she's still struggling, you can show her the poster and say, show me what you're feeling when I go upstairs and it makes you feel. What does it make you feel? Do you feel sad? Because there's little expressions. And children are really clever. They'll be able to identify it. And then you can say things to her. You can say, you know what, it's okay to feel sad or when you're feeling lonely, or it's okay to feel sad when you feel alone. I'm just upstairs. So even though you think you're alone because you're downstairs, I'm just upstairs. And you know what? You can shout and call my name, or I can call down to you. And you can start off with that. And you've got to build up on that, because she needs to know that you're going to be kind and gentle towards her emotions, that it's safe for her to feel these emotions and safe to express them. So try and build little things into your day every day of helping her to, first of all, identify the emotions, express them safely, and feel comfortable with them, and know that you are going to be comfortable with her emotions. So, as I said, I've got a free emotional intelligence course. It's not a starter course, it's the whole course that helps you to understand all of this. So, take the time maybe and just go through it at your own pace, because it's really going to help you to understand your child and how to help them to understand their emotions. And I can promise you this is that when you validate their emotions and you understand it much more, it's going to give you this incredible sense of connection between the two of you. But also it's going to give her so much more confidence, instead of her growing up and becoming an adult that never feels emotionally safe and secure with how she feels. Okay, right. The next question comes from Amy, and it's about her son Noah, who's 13. And she says, my son has become very quiet since starting secondary school. He says everything is fine, but he spends most of his time in his room and doesn't really talk anymore. How do I know whether this is just being a teenager or whether he's struggling? Okay. Teenagers, just to set your mind at ease, that teenagers do spend a lot of time in their bedrooms, and especially boys. Uh, it always seems to be boys more than girls, although girls do as well, but boys. So teenagers, basically, there's two things going on with them. So because they start operating in their emotional brain from the age of 4 onwards, so they're just a ball of emotions. Everything, there's no rational, there's no logical thoughts. It's just emotions, emotions, emotions. So it's all about what they're feeling. But the double whammy of this is the hormones. So when children go into puberty, they have these massive spikes of hormones. That's why they get the pimples and they get the smelly skin, and they just, they start developing their bodies more, or their bodies start developing, hair starts growing, the whole thing of puberty. It makes them very moody. And with teenagers, it's very overwhelming. I mean, think back to when you were a teenager. I think back to when I was a teenager, and there's two phases in my life I never want to go through again, and that's being a teenager and going through menopause because they're very similar because they got a lot to do with hormones. The one is where you get a boost of hormones, and then the other one is when you lose your hormones. So it's a very overwhelming time. And during this time, they are trying to understand themselves. And then boys also go through these situations where they go through stages where one stage is about adventure, another one is about being the hero, another one is about figuring out who they are. So they got all these different life stages as well. And what a lot of boys tend to do, as well as girls, is that they retreat because they're trying to figure it out. So they go to school. Now, in junior school, they come from a place of they're like the big fish in the little pond. So they feel important, they're the oldest, they feel kind of great and they feel important. And then suddenly they go to secondary school or high school, and then they're the little fish. And now they've got to start from scratch again. So it's almost like, when they started school in the beginning, they're unsure of everything, they're not confident of anything, they see the bigger kids. Um, Children become competitive. Sometimes they become mean to each other. And then, of course, they see girls or boys, whichever way they're inclined to go, and everything causes a lot of confusion. And it's all about wanting to be liked. So for children, that's why teenagers, sorry, not children, for teenagers, it's especially important for them to be liked and to be accepted, and more so by friends than by parents. This is a phase where they need to be liked by their peers. That it doesn't matter if the parents don't like them, because as they're going into teenage years and puberty, this is a part of children's lives where they are separating from the parent. They are learning how to become independent. It's a stage. They separate more and more and more. They want to learn how to be independent from the parent, and that's what's important for them to fit in with their peers. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on with them. And it's important that you give teenagers a lot of leeway with their emotions, but also boundaries of safety. And I think a lot of times what we do as parents is that we either go into a state of fear because we also realize, oh my gosh, now I can't control my teenager anymore. Um, or, oh, you know what, I'll just let them get on with it and just leave them to their own devices. So you've got to find a balance between the two, because the one can become over controlling, which will actually push them away, and they will go more towards their peers and their friends and look for acceptance there. Or if you go the other way and you just let them get on with life, they're going to think that you don't care. So it's like this real, it's like a difficult boundary sort of thing that you have to set. One thing I will say though is just remember that you want to be your child's friend, but you're not their mate. So you want your child to be able to connect with you and speak to you openly and trust you, but don't become their mate, because when you become their mate, there's that level of respect that goes, and then you're not able to handle the situation, because when you become their mate, they don't see you as somebody that they can rely on, depend on, that my parents is going to protect me and keep me safe no matter what. They're going to think, oh, well, it's my mate. So you've got to have that boundary where you're assertive, you set rules, but you are lenient with their emotions. And sometimes, when you're raising a teenager, you're going to become unpopular. But this is one thing that I want to say to you is that because they don't operate from a rational perspective and they don't have a rational brain yet, the rational brain only kicks in at 24, 25, you have to be their rational brain, because they don't have that ability yet. So always think about it in that way. Don't feel like you're being mean. Um, think logically for them, point things out for them. And so this is what I would do. So bearing all of that in mind, and I know it's a lot, but you want to check in on them, and you've got to keep your attention on their behavior. And I think sometimes when parents just go, oh, well, he's just being a teenager, he's sitting in his room and you just ignore it because you don't know what to do, that's the danger zone. There's been many parents that have very sadly lost their children to suicide because the parent doesn't want to acknowledge that they feel that there's something wrong, and because they don't know what to do, they just leave it and they ignore it, and then the teenager suffers. So, two things that you need to do is you need to tune into your intuition, not fear, because fear is something that you feel like really, really strongly, and it kicks into control, and it's like, I'm so scared something's going to happen to my child. That's fear. Whereas intuition is this very soft voice that says to you, something's not right. Something's going on with my child, because you or your partner will know best, will know your child best, and they will know, or you will know what's going on with them. So you've got to tune into that. And then the second thing is that you've got to check in on them regularly. So if they're, for instance, sitting in their room, if they if their habits change, so if they stop eating, um, if they start acting weirdly towards food, um, if their regular routines change, if any behavior changes, that's a red flag, because it's almost like it gets escalated. If a child feels that the more alone they feel and the more unsafe they feel and the more misunderstood they feel, then it escalates to different behaviors. So you've got to be mindful of their behaviors. So keep an eye on that, tune into your intuition, and then check in with them. So even if they've gone to their room and they've been there for a couple of hours or whatever the case may be, instead of just leaving them to their own devices, go inside, check on them. Hi, how was your day? They might go, oh, they might not want to talk, because often they don't want to talk. And then the thing that you've always got to say to them is, well, I'm always here if you want to talk to me. I'm just downstairs. Or, are you hungry? Do you want a snack? No, no, whatever. Is something wrong? You can, if you see something is wrong, you can say to them, it looks like something is wrong. Would you like to talk about it? And if they go no, then say, well, whenever you're ready, I'm here for you. I'll talk, let's talk about it. You just need to come and look for me. You just need to phone me. I'm always available to talk to you. And then you've got to reassure them that no matter what they say is going to shock you, and no matter what they say is going to change the way you feel about them. Because sometimes children won't open up until they can trust you completely, because they don't want to disappoint you. They don't want you to punish them. They don't want you to overreact. They need to know that they can be completely safe and say whatever they want to say. And I just want to add in here that just remember that you were a teenager as well once, and you've got to think back to what you needed as a teenager that you possibly didn't get from your parents, and be that parent for them. So always relate yourself back to that. But check up on them, reassure them, always tell them that you love them and that you're always going to be there for them, to talk to them. And if they still don't want to, you can say to them, well, if you don't want to talk to me and you don't want to talk to dad or mom or whoever, if you want to speak to somebody else, another adult, go and speak to your aunt or your uncle or your grandma or your granddad. But somebody's always going to be there for you to talk to, as long as you talk about it, because it helps when you talk about it. You're not alone in this, because whatever is going on with you, we've all possibly been through something similar. We've all had problems. We've all been teenagers, and I know it's like a really, really, really hard phase. I never want to be a teenager again. So just remember that whatever you're going through, we possibly went through, and no matter what you tell us, it's not going to change the way we feel about you. Okay, so big subject. Thank you for asking that question. Really important, because teenagers, gosh, they really do go through a lot, and I think they're often very misunderstood, and that is why they act out, and that's why they'll go and join gangs and go get in with the wrong crowd, because the quickest way to feel significant and important is to join a gang, because now suddenly you got power, because you're given the ability to overpower somebody else. Um, and bullying is a huge thing as well. A lot of teenagers get bullied and virtually bullied. The other thing that I would suggest as well is keep an eye on their devices, because sometimes children won't talk about it, but they could be bullied. And you've got to keep an eye on it. You've got to check their messages sometimes, and not by doing it secretly, but the thing is with kids, you've got to, it's fragile, isn't it? Because you don't want to snoop and you don't want them to think that you don't trust them, but at the same time, you want to keep in the loop of what's going on. Um, I would also keep in the loop with their friends' parents to see what's going on there. Um, without being a stalker and without being, as I said, betraying their trust. But don't just brush over it if you can intuitively feel like something is wrong there. But yes, they do spend a lot of time in their room. Right, that's all I have time for today. So if you have got a burning question about your child's emotions or behavior, please reach out. All you need to do is ask. You are not alone. And all you need to do is submit your question below, and you can stay anonymous if you like. And so from me, goodbye and happy parenting. Cheers for now. Bye.